The purpose of the day dedicated to the regional approach is to see the various issues pertaining to preserving marine biodiversity, preserving marine ecosystems. How can all this be orchestrated at a regional level? We have a single planet. You know the saying, one planet, one ocean, after all. All the big oceans on Earth are linked. This underscores the importance of regional cooperation. This cooperation is all the more necessary considering the functioning of marine ecosystems, that is, currentology, migratory species, and cycles. You have the cycle of oxygen, hydrogen, reproduction of certain species. This is the case in particular of coral reefs. The challenge today is to see how regional cooperation, through various initiatives, through major international programs like the Regional Seas Program, can facilitate synergies between local action, national action, how to boost the efficacy of such action too, in order better to take account of the scales of marine ecosystems.
In the Southern Ocean, or in Antarctica, there's not a lot of life on the land itself. So the reserves, any type of protected area, has been focused on the Southern Ocean. The marine reserves in the Southern Ocean has been an ongoing discussion since 2006. It's managed through the Antarctic Treaty System with the Commission on the Convention for the Antarctic Marine Living Resources. That group of states, state parties, goes by the name of CAMLR. They are actually deciding as we speak this week on two major proposals for marine reserves in the Antarctic, one being focused in the Ross Sea and one in the East Antarctic. And those discussions have been ongoing for many years. In the Arctic, the marine reserve discussion is quite different. The governance of the Arctic is quite different. We have 8 Arctic nations and 5 coastal states. They organize themselves within a group called the Arctic Council. But the Arctic Council doesn't have any legal personality. So any type of marine reserves will be by the desire and the initiation by individual countries. And right now, many of the individual countries do have some marine protected areas within their country. It may not be in the Arctic. And that is why IUCN, working with our partners and states, wants to promote a network of protected areas for those nations. Likewise, in the Arctic nations, as well as the Arctic stakeholders, including indigenous people, are trying to be quite innovative of how we protect certain areas in the Arctic. Going beyond marine protected areas, there's a number of different tools that we have in our toolbox, whether it's ecologically, biologically sensitive sea areas, or a particularly sensitive sea area through the International Maritime Organization, or potentially identifying marine world heritage sites. So those types of activities and discussions in the Arctic, we would like to explore whether those can be applied also to the Southern Ocean discussions.
we can say in general destruction of the mangrove forest mostly by the man-made and inappropriate management from the state. Now many communities started conservation of the mangrove forest in the form of community mangrove forest, and it has expanded from one forest now about 22 community forests in Trang province. We are trying to establish some kind of co-management among the parties who love mangroves. Human development is very important. Understanding, respect to the nature and cooperation to the other parties is very important. So I think the co-learning process is important. Secondly is the government policy should support the objective of the conservation of local people. Thirdly, there should be the proper law to support the right of the local people to protect the resource for sustainable livelihood. Once this message heard by the public, broader intention from the public to the mangrove forest conservation increased. And from the message of the price, the whole communities in the southern region they recognize the importance of the protecting mangrove forests.
The convention is the first of the regional seas. It started in '76 and gathers all the 21 countries bordering the Mediterranean Sea and the European Union for the purpose of protecting the resource.
And we are an intergovernmental body that has legal competence for managing fisheries in the high seas of the Northeast Atlantic. The development within fisheries management organizations in the last sort of 10-15 years has been very rapid in the direction of putting in place measures to protect vulnerable marine ecosystems from the effects of fisheries. We have actually put in place very big closures where we have identified either specific vulnerable marine ecosystems like coral reefs, things like that, or large areas where we know that there are a number of vulnerable marine ecosystems that we haven't quite pinpointed, but we close them down for precautionary reasons.
Of course, one of the pressures that affects at times the areas is the fisheries pressure. So the moment that we need to start defining the measures to take to protect that specific areas, we really need to go and work together with our partner organization on fisheries because they have the jurisdiction on fisheries issues. And this is when also we have started to realize, all of us, that we are gradually converging towards same objectives, and then that it is very important that then we work together. What we have done is, while the designation of marine protected areas of Mediterranean interest remains a mandate and within the jurisdiction of ministers of environment, which are the ones owning the Barcelona Convention, we are going to be working it out very closely together with our partner organization, the Fisheries Commission, the General Fisheries Commission of the Mediterranean. And they will be defining the specific fisheries measures that are required. So we are really trying to move towards two systems that were designed in total isolation into a single and more coherent and eventually more effective system.
I mean, you cannot have sustainable fisheries without making sure that you conserve the resources for the future. Precisely in that context, we come across exactly the same as you do from the other side, the importance of working with others. I mean, to take an example, I mean, if NEAF closes a vast area because there are corals there, cold water corals, that does not serve any purpose if 2 years later there is deep sea mining operation going on there destroying all the corals. We don't have any competence when it comes to deep sea mining, so we need to cooperate in that case, for example, with the International Seabed Authority. There's also various other actors that have, international organizations that have competence for various activities in the high seas, and it's very important to bring them together and cooperate. And in that context, we have actually been working with the OSPAR Commission for the protection of the marine environment of the Northeast Atlantic. There are many actors that can be very useful to bring together.
Thanks to both of you.
C'est le deuxième plus grand récif corallien au monde, après le triangle corallien.
WWF France is celebrating its 40th anniversary today in the Sofitel Hotel. WWF has been present in many other regions for longer, in Madagascar for the past 50 years, and it's celebrating its 50th anniversary in Madagascar. The Mozambique Channel is an area which is very important for us. A lot of initiatives are being taken by WWF and other stakeholders. There are huge challenges in the area. The area comprises very poor countries like Madagascar and the Comores, and increasingly people are exploring and discovering mineral deposits and gas, hence the area is a new El Dorado. Populations heavily depend on natural resources. Coastal populations depend on fishing as a source of protein. Likewise, in the area, there are many biodiversity challenges. Through WWF, we've discovered very healthy populations of cetaceans, migratory birds, a high level of endemism. There is a healthy ecosystem. We need, therefore, to protect the area and provide for sustainable development for the populations. To this end, it shouldn't just be NGOs that take initiatives, but states, institutions, the private sector, and NGOs together. For us, a shared vision is absolutely necessary with a view to consistent management of MPAs, natural resources, fishing for the well-being of the local population, to create a proper development and income-generating activities, and to turn this zone into a rich area for the population and biodiversity.
PRCM is a coalition which brings together public institutions, organizations belonging to civil society, international organizations, people working in fisheries, tourism and the environment more generally, and all the players involved in the coastal and sea fields. The city of Marseille is here. We're here to bear the message of the Sea and Coastline Department, which is organized around 5 action plans, which are presented here in our booth, and also the plan for the enhancement of the marine environment and the protection of the resources. We are, of course, the host city and co-organizer of this event, the third IMPAC meeting, and so the city of Marseille is thoroughly committed to this approach, along with the IUCN, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, which set up this organization along with us. And it was absolutely unthinkable that we should not be here in this important meeting, along with the team from the Sea and Coastline Department. When you have an exclusive economic zone of 5.5 million square kilometers, then you have an enormous potential in terms of marine areas. So we have regulated fishing areas, we also have management plans for the marine spaces, including one which is also a biosphere reserve. This is the complex around Fakarava, Tayaro, and other atolls in the Mutu group. And then there are some very specific initiatives which we've come to present here at this meeting. And in particular, there is the educative marine area of the Marquesas. This is a very innovative concept. Remember, the first part of our economy is tourism, the second activity is pearl fishing, and then fishing more generally. Everything is turned towards the sea.
I think that the Day of Regional Approaches has been really interesting. There have been 18 workshops and knowledge cafes explaining the variety of regions and what we have. So we have regional rollout of things like the description of EBSAs by the CBD. We have the regional seas programs that are operating with governments, groups of governments. We have other regions like oceanscapes and seascapes that are involving people and communities, and then regions of marine protected area managers and networks. So I think there's huge diversity and there's huge momentum, and what we should do as a result of this is spread the message that marine protected areas at a regional level can make a difference. And not be complacent about it either. We identified a lot of challenges and a lot of recommendations that we can go forward with from this Congress, and that we should be doing something about, and which we should be funding and supporting. And I hope that people out there who can get involved will be involved and use these examples of where a difference has been made.
Et donc le moment est venu pour que M. Laurent Roy, le directeur de l'eau et de la biodiversité, remette ce sextant à Aguirre pour le Chili, puisque maintenant c'est le Chili qui va bénéficier, enfin je veux dire hériter de ce symbole.
Merci. Donc, premièrement,
First of all, what makes me think we've moved on to a further stage here in Marseille is the fact that all these people came and remained for a full 5 days. The discussions that were held here were therefore multidisciplinary and involved many different publics. That's very rare. Second, we have the UN decision behind us now, so that will encourage us to involve the population more and to communicate better as to why it's important to protect our oceans. It's not just a passion shared by conservationists, it's truly in our economic interests. It will foster general well-being.
Unfortunately, many MPAs in the world are simply paper structures. That's to say, they lack resources. They're not, in fact, managed, quite simply. So the idea is to ensure that all the MPAs should benefit from resources given by the state, but also perhaps from the local authorities and also the private sector. Because after all, the ocean is a growing, a developing sector of economic activity. So it seems necessary, important, and also fair that the private sector should make a contribution to the protection of the oceans and, to a certain extent, help in the management of MPAs. And this is perfectly possible because they are being specifically requested to participate on the basis of good governance, to participate, to invest, to become players in the conservation business. So this idea that was developed during the conference is to develop partnerships, particularly partnerships with industry, to ensure that the protection of the oceans with MPAs should become a matter for all and not just for specialists.